an Elise pick again if there are two jungle bans, because that's very clearly one of their main strategies, setting up Jankos for success in the early game.
We've already had one of the answers come out, H2K sticking with the Irelia ban. Fnatic answered that with the Echo after Shen. So now, do the third bans remain the same? It was Nidalee that would be here for H2K. No, there's the big change. First pick priority now changes. Do Fnatic get rid of a jungle, or do they allow both through? Surely the Echo doesn't come through now as well.
I mean, now if you are Fnatic, the only reason you would ban Nidalee is if you are that afraid of Jankos playing it. But then you give him the free Elise pick, and you don't get the Gnar yourself in the first rotation as a trade-off. So I think here you leave both junglers open, you ban something completely different, and then you trade Nidalee for Elise. We know Spirit likes to play both, we know Jankos likes to play both.
Then where do we look here? It's going to be aimed at Febiven at this point. So now we said the jungle priority. Do you think it's first pickable here? Or do you pivot to something like the Karma, which we have seen first pick in other scenarios? Because if you have both up and you're comfortable on both,
I'm actually not a big fan of Karma first pick anymore, because I don't even feel she's that much of a flex pick. Almost every time she goes mid lane, you're kind of left with the sad feeling of, 25 minutes, and if these guys haven't won yet, the game is over, you know, they've already gonna lose. So I'm happy not to see Karma. I think she's best in support and not so good in mid, which is why we see something different with obviously all the top lane bans.
I'm really happy to see that Echo first pick with both Elise and Nidalee up and available. You know that Jankos is gonna get something he's comfortable on, and that he can have a good impact. So take something that we're aware Kikis is comfortable on, we're aware is a good matchup in that top lane, and they steal away their Echo.
And now one of the picks that would have been a high priority in the previous game, in fact, was picked by H2K. The Gangplank that we have seen in the top lane is not a great matchup into the Echo. That's one of the matchups we initially in LCK saw Echo picked into, so Fnatic again are losing themselves a favorable matchup.
Yeah, I would love to see Fnatic go for something like Sivir here or Tahm Kench, and then take their preferred jungler as well, not to show too many things here on red side. Braum would be a big surprise. I think Sivir was the one we just talked about. Braum, on the other hand, to me, is not one of the absolute top tiers. He's still fine. He's definitely not bad. But I think the likes of Tahm Kench, Trundle, especially this early on when it's still a flex pick, has higher value than locking in a Braum. But this is Fnatic wanting to wait with solo laners.
I would agree with that, but does this perhaps provide an answer somewhat to the way that H2K have not put the presence on the Nidalee in the bans phase? Maybe saying, well, we don't really care too much about Nidalee if we've got Braum to block a little bit of the poke. Obviously, it's not a catch-all answer to everything. Still difficult.
Yeah, exactly, because Nidalee like excels in the first, 15, 20 minutes, not even in terms of like just pure poking, just the fact she puts so much pressure on the map, but I prefer Jankos on Elise. I prefer him on a jungler where he can actually gank his lanes and set them up for success himself. So I would prefer that for H2K if they want to lock in jungler here and secure it, and give Spirit, I know it sounds crazy, but give him the Nidalee and play around it.
Well, if that is the case, it is both Jankos and Spirit going true to form. You know, Jankos, that carnivorous, kill-focused jungler, Spirit, the farm-to-win jungler. And the answer will not be found yet, because the bottom lane has been secured for H2K, seeing the Sivir Braum again, holding all of their cards close to their chest.
Well, you heard it in the video coming into today, talking about how this meta favors Febiven, a tower pusher known to want to just shove down objectives, get yourself that tower, move to another lane. Tristana is the epitome of that, and with Taric alongside, there's a fair amount of protection. You can jump away, the multi-person stun, the shield, the heal, everything that comes from that. H2K looking to build themselves a fairly solid bot lane, at least for objective taking.
And Sivir is one of the AD carries who won't like bully around the Tristana in lane, so that's not going to be an issue for Febiven. And also when you show this very early Braum, like melee support, you open up for the likes of Taric to come in here. So H2K are drafting what I consider a very strong team fighting core already. Like Echo is still so annoying to deal with in these fights when he goes tanky, zoning with obviously his W, able to stick to squishy targets very easily in the back line, and then you have this strong core down the bottom lane.
Last minute change up, but from one expected pick to another, we talk about team fighting here. Well, here's a queen of team fighting coming out of the middle lane. Very good at setting up flanks, very good at punishing people for being out of position. And theoretically, the engage can come faster than the Taric ultimate comes through. So always got to be wary of teleport flanks and Lissandra coming in from different angles into fights.
Yeah, so we actually talked about this a lot Sunday before we got to see the last Fnatic pick, where we were like, oh, we'd like to see something like Lissandra or Talia, you know, these kind of picks that can have global impact, who can really push in a lane and then actually have impact in other lanes. And I think Lissandra for Febiven it's one of these picks where whenever he's played it in the past, you always felt like, okay, now he's active, now he's actually on the map, now he has an impact again. And that's why I feel this pick is really good for him. But they're showing a lot again without now seeing the mid lane. First of all, you don't get a counter pick for your own mid laner. You've shown your top laner as well. You're only last picking jungle at this point. And we go back to the Elise we mentioned. It's what I like to see from Jankos instead of Nidalee.
So now we look at it, do we want the Nidalee? The Gragas would be perhaps the better option when you look at it. Like Nidalee, okay, gives you the beginning of the game and a good early game setting, but doesn't offer too much with the rest of this setup that Fnatic have for themselves, especially when you look at what H2K want to do, wanting to get into the fight, maybe bring a little bit of disengage coming from Spirit. We know he's had fantastic games on Nidalee. His last showing, however, was the one that he tweeted after being like, I don't want to play Nidalee, useless champion. So there's still a lot of questions. Very rare we see jungle last pick.
Yeah, very rare. But you can see because of the priority on other lanes, the fact that there were two highly sought-after junglers in the pool available, no pressure to pick them early. And I like the fact of Gragas with the rest of Fnatic's comp because they don't have the strongest of front lines. You compare that to a Taric, Echo, Vlad, it's going to take a long time to burn through all of that.
I'm just a little bit scared when I see this Fnatic composition.
Yeah.
I think Gangplank can struggle up in the top lane, especially if they lock in something like this. Oh, thank God.
Okay.
All right, better. But to me, Fnatic waiting with that last pick jungle is first of all very surprising. Maybe it's because they want to take away Lissandra from Rio, and they're like, we don't want to risk you taking it, and then we have to counter pick it, so we want to steal it ourselves. But like Vladimir won't really struggle in the lane. He goes early MR anyway. He's not going to get one shot, and he's going to outscale Lissandra big time.
And that's the thing, is locking the Lissandra didn't allow for a counter of like the Cassio we've seen, but this Vladimir for H2K now comprises the same kind of setup we were looking for them already. Echo comes in for the team fight, Vlad's there as well, Tristana and Taric all on top of it. For Fnatic, perhaps a little bit trickier composition to pull off when you're looking at the stronger side lanes at some point in the game. Obviously, Vlad will end up getting a little bit better, but we spoke about this GP. Going to need a lot of time into the Echo. It's a typically bad matchup for Kikis here, so it's going to take a long time for Fnatic actually to get stronger side lanes when they can.
It will take them longer time, but in theory, that Nidalee, Lissandra, Sivir should come online slightly earlier than their opposite numbers. So a little bit of a ticking time window for Fnatic, you might feel. The coaches are on stage. It is Prolly and Nico the Pico, Fnatic's newest coach replacing Daylor. What pressure there is on him to take Fnatic once again to the next stages of the playoffs. Ladies and gentlemen, picks and bans have been concluded. You guys jump onto Twitter and vote. We're not using hashtag H2K or Fnatic win. We're using hashtag God-given or hashtag Wrecking Crew. The champions are locked in. The players are ready. It's time to jump into the game for H2K versus Fnatic.
Against Fnatic, we have a really good chance because they kept playing worse and worse.
Hopefully they will choke a bit and they will not be able to play as well lanes.
The first time we met them, they destroyed us, and then the second time we won against them. It looks like there is no middle ground, so the team that prepares the best probably will win.
Ladies and gentlemen, the game is live. We are into the quarterfinals.
Not a joke. We are in the game.
The longest pick and bans in history has finally concluded.
And they even got to change some of the picks because it was such a long. Yeah, actually, a lot of the picks completely different here. But we talked about this in Champ Select, guys. Fnatic and some of the issues here. H2K running with fantastic team fighting, great scaling, your AD carry, your mid laner especially. Some of these hyper carries in the late game. Lissandra, Nidalee, it's not the same situation. It's almost Rekkles alone together with, I guess, adding Kikis. You know, Rekkles and Kikis in the late game trying to carry for Fnatic. But there are a lot of squishy members here against a lot of damage on the side of H2K, and it's not going to work out.
Yeah, exactly. And I also want to amend something that I was talking about at the end of Champion Select, where we were talking about strong side lanes. Now, the difficulty is you look at like the Echo, the Elise pairing when you bring the junglers up to the top lane. Very difficult to deal with. So Kikis, if he gets jungle attention from Jankos, is going to need Spirit there as well. They need time to get Kikis through the game.
Yeah, definitely. And when you have Nidalee as well, like Nidalee needs strong laners around her so she can play very aggressive, the very farm-heavy style, invading the enemy jungle. You can't do that if your laners are getting pushed in themselves. So we need to see Febiven and Kikis play a bit aggressive in the lanes, even though it's actually not going to be very easy in these matchups. Otherwise, Spirit might not have much of an impact early on, and Jankos can actually gank on his jungler.
All right, so can Jankos gank? We'll find out. Rekkles and Yellow going for a little bit of a cheeky play. Vander and Febiven already went for Krugs as the wave is pushing forward. But just to quickly add on to that jungler discussion, I'm very happy that both of these guys got their almost signature champions this split. Stun down into Yellow. And now we can see whether or not this kill-focused style of Jankos in standard lanes can be offset by the farm style that Spirit has been so famous for over the last few months and years.
Definitely, but now we've just been looking at the bottom lane for a bit, and not a great start from Fnatic, honestly, at all. Trying to hide in the bush, set up where they can zone them off when they do a camp, and you try and stop them from therefore getting experience from the 3 melees. Doesn't work when you have, like, fairly low kill pressure 2v2. So Forgiven just kind of walked by them, got the CS, got level 2, and then he started trading with Rekkles. So not really a whole lot been happening from Fnatic's side. And this is going to be fine for Forgiven just sitting there in farm.
Yeah, and what a story, though, coming into this from Forgiven, from Rekkles. So much hype about it. Well, hell, we have a bot lane stream for it. So the hashtags on your screen. Hashtag GodGiven, hashtag Reckon Crew. Get your votes in. We're going to check on that later.
Is it with a 1 on I?
It's with a 1, and we're going to check in not only with the bot lane, but also with the hashtags later as this game goes on. But standard lanes, as is customary in 6.15. Of course, that's the patch we're playing on Spirit. With standard lanes on Nidalee, surprise, surprise, he finds the time to go aggressive into the jungle.
Yeah, swapping control. Jankos doing the same to Fnatic up in the top side, and Kikis got to be a little careful, because if Jankos comes through that tri-bush, there is some potential for a summoner spell down or something similar.
And this is the point just made before, how Fnatic needs to have these solo laners who can actually push in order to set up Spirit to really start playing his Nidalee style, where he's finding Jankos, he's bullying Jankos, he's trying to force him back to base and take away all his stuff. Well, if you look at your minimap, mid and top are being pushed by H2K. It's only the bottom lane where Fnatic is actually able to keep it in the middle. So right now, Jankos can just trade farm with an Nidalee, and that is perfectly fine for him, because now he can look to gank.
And there's a very, hang on. Yeah, I was about to say, there's a very interesting timing
But
window.
don't start yet.
Spirit.
Spirit's in trouble coming down. Red buff applied, summoner heal already, and exhaust used. So a couple of combats no longer available to GodGiven and Vander down in the bottom lane.
This whole passage of play started because Rekkles tried to use the spell shield on a bomb and actually missed the timing of it. So it meant his spell shield was down. They could try and utilize the stun. That didn't quite land within that timing window, and Spirit couldn't quite capitalize, but 2 summoners used already in that bottom lane from H2K does turn the pressure on a little bit for them.
Definitely, and I could see some early action. Obviously for Spirit, it's not a Nidalee's dream to try and gank level 4, but he was already down there. He cleared away the camps he needed. He was on his way out. He has one of these early ganks from Jankos, and these are a lot more impactful than the Nidalee ones.
Well, First Blood King looking for more. Kikis already flashed away. Flash forward by Jankos. Tower, he's tagging Odo. Jankos does it for the 10th time this season.
And it's almost too easy now for Jankos, because not only is he on Elise, he also sees Spirit in the bottom lane just like 20 seconds ago. He knows there's no chance for Spirit to already be in position to counter gank. And he just goes for that first very, very easy gank on top side. He picks up first blood for his team. And again, this is one of the big problems for Fnatic in this composition they drafted. They don't really have winning solo laners, and that is important in this meta because you need pressure. Otherwise, the enemy jungler can just run over you.
And in my mind, it is an unforgivable mistake against a team like H2K and a player like Jankos. The graphic on screen, 10 First Blood kills this split. He's got 9 additional First Blood assists. Hell, he's given up First Blood 6 additional times on top of that. 25 out of 37 games. Jankos has been around First Blood.
In the bottom lane. He wants more now.
Find out if he can get a second. Rekkles has got the bomb on his head. Stand behind me. Yellow's run away. A flash from the cocoon. And summoner spells down, turning some damage back onto Vander.
Ooh,
and we can see Spirit waiting in the wings. Javelin toss will not find Forgiven. Fnatic, they live to fight another day.
That's going to spell the end for now. At least Spirit wants one more spear to come out. Not going to quite connect on this. In fact, all of the action is just going to stick around this bottom lane, which, you know, the fact that Jankos squeezed in a gank top was enough. No teleports available for Fnatic means they can't even up the numbers, but Spirit's caught.
He is indeed. A lot of damage coming down from those little spiderlings. YellowStar's looking for the tag. Concussive blows. Not going to be able to stun just yet. And Rekkles, with the help of Yellow and Spirit, now pushing onto the tower.
Yeah, Fnatic just tried to buy a bit of time because Kikis is like a few minions off level 6. Now he's level 6, has his ulti in case something happens in the bottom lane. But one of the things you guys will see with these ranged junglers is they can move into a lane and start sieging, basically, already level 5, level 6, like Spirit just did here to apply even more pressure. H2K were not able to lock down any target with CC, but Odoamne is able to lock down Kikis.
So much damage from that parallel convergence combo. Kikis already TP to lane. that's going to be a difficult setup for him to maintain control.
This is already a difficult matchup for the Gangplank very early on anyway. Now he's had jungle attention. Before that, Echo has had the time to go back, get a little bit more. Kikis got himself the Sheen, which kind of helps in his trading, but he's gone right into Swiftness boots after that. All he's trying to do is make sure that Echo can't stick on him, and if there's one thing that Echo is very good at, is sticking to targets in a long lane. So good luck, Kikis. You need another good few minutes before you can get Triforce. Long time away.
Now the thing about Gangplank is even when he loses lane, he goes 0-20. He still has an ulti with a lot of impact on the map. So what Fnatic wants to do once they have TPs ready, especially on Febiven, is actually set up one of these plays in the bottom lane where you have GP ulti instantly coming down. You have Lissandra TPing in, and you blow up one target, and then you take that tower. That's how Fnatic gets out of this slump in the early game. If they fail these globals, suddenly they're going to be even further behind.
Tower First Blood still available in the game. Spirit is throwing out javelins all day long, making Forgiven and Vander's life very difficult.
Yeah, they might even be able to do something before Febiven is ready just by using the GP ulti from Kikis. They keep sieging on his turret. This is all they're doing with Nidalee right now. Just sieging. They're not denying any farm from Jankos, but they are trying to deny farm from Forgiven.
That was a buster shot used actually by Forgiven. Spirit eats a cocoon, forced to pounce away. Teleport not available just yet for any of the laners. Odo and Kikis will be even fairly soon. And also important to note, neither ADC's back yet. We saw on Saturday's quarterfinal that delayed lane swap coming in for Tower First Blood a few times.
And that's going to be a difficult play to pull off in this. The GP ultimate makes it exceptionally difficult to push down a tower very early on. Here is the first recall coming out. Rekkles was spotted. This will give Forgiven some sort of time, but will they end up swapping this away and use that GP ult in their favor?
With Rekkles recalling first, even with YellowStar stopping his recall, it means Rekkles can appear in the top lane very quickly. Only issue for Fnatic is that Kikis are not able to push in this wave, build up his own wave, push it towards enemy tower. You take that wave and push down the tower with it. Now he's actually all the way back in his. So this is a very slow play now from Fnatic, and H2K, if they feel they're too far behind, can just go top themselves and just match it. But I think they can still go bot lane here because Rekkles is so delayed.
While we've got some time for both of those lanes to be set up, I think important to note that Ryu and Febiven, unchallenged in that mid lane, still farming their way up to power and farming their way into this middle section of the game, and there's already some recalls. It looks like Rekkles is just going to back away to play safe. The duo of H2K is going to be matching up top.
Yeah, you also got to remember how hard it is to push against an Echo. Because when that wave is lined up for him moving towards his tower, that's an easy Q through all 6 minions. Gets them very low, he can do it twice, and then it's already dead. So H2K, as you can see in your map, they had plenty of time. Could have gone bot lane because they cleared out wave, or could just go top, take the 2v2. But this is now where Fnatic can strike. Double teleport and GP ulti. It's 2 globals, or 3 globals technically, to only 1 on the side of H2K. This is where Fnatic needs to do something here in the mid game. Otherwise, H2K can just keep scaling.
They're fairly fortunate for now that there is a small lead from both Rekkles and Febiven, so despite Kikis being down, the rest of the team is. Ward gives the game away for H2K. They already knew that that was the intended play. But do they know Spirit is up here? I don't believe he was spotted by the minion line as he crossed into the bush. Still fairly difficult. You're against a Taric who has his ultimate now, so unless you can kill both targets within 2.5 seconds, or at least Taric, it's a difficult one. Kikis is in a lot of trouble in this one.
He really is. Already forced to flash away from that parallel convergence and can't stand toe-to-toe. Febiven gets away with the claw, and the cocoon will not land from Jankos. So just that single kill on the board, even sidestepping the javelin toss. Spirit can't even take down the pink ward. So good spot for H2K, maintaining this minor semblance of control.
Yeah, and H2K making sure they constantly punish these globals here. They're attacking Kikis in the bottom lane, just with the Odoamne on his own, then ganking the mid lane as well, stopping Fnatic from setting up this dive here near the top lane. And we might get a gank.
Oh!
We get a pause.
Okay, we do have a brief pause as the tension continues to build here in game 1 of the quarterfinal. I want to jump in just very quickly and say I'm happy to see H2K reading what was quite a telegraphed play in terms of that first back recall pressure top lane play that we saw a lot out of Saturday, where Giants failed to really recognize and respond. But now the question is, what happens next? How do these duos continue to trade? How did the top laners, no flash and Kikis, etc., impact the game?
Well, this is where the jungle matchup that has already been influential will kind of ripple effect through that as well. One thing to note is that Spirit has not been able to get a massive farm lead over Jankos throughout this early game, despite wanting to. Jankos has had so much pressure around the bottom lane, already in top lane as well. Now trying to go mid. Spirit cannot sit back in his jungle. He can't let Jankos do it.
No, and we have to highlight how this Nidalee in this specific game is not the counter jungling, get 50 CS ahead of the enemy. No, it's actually just a siege machine.
Yeah.
It's just sitting with the dual lane, trying to land spears against Febiven and Vander, try and chunk them down, and when they are dropping low, well, then the GP ulti and the TPs happen, and Fnatic are constantly trying to siege in that first tower where the 2v2 lane is. That is the entire strategy for this early to mid game, but they haven't been able to pull it off yet.
And the pressure is on, because if that play doesn't work out soon, this team composition from H2K is just looking even more scary. Brief update for you guys at home. There is audio levels that are being adjusted with Rekkles. It is not related to what happened on Sunday. This is literally just comfort and adjustment.
Started sweating already.
Yep. So once they're busy tweaking those settings, we should hopefully be getting back into game soon. And I'm fairly happy that the early game has gone the way that it has. There is tension, there's pretty good plays. The game has not been lost in the first 10 minutes by either team yet.
You have very low standards, Trevor.
Look, because let's be frank, the other quarterfinal between Giants and Unicorns Above was game over by 10 minutes most
that's
of them.
fair.
You know?
Yeah, it did snowball out of control.
Exactly,
you know.
exactly.
Saturday now, not yesterday, but Saturday.
What we don't want to see, though, is H2K trying to make a 2 versus 2 play, regardless of the TPs, getting double TP'd on, and then suddenly a Lissandra, a GP with a GP ult show up in the lane. Like, the reason we don't want to see that is because that would be H2K making a rookie mistake. Like, going for the 2 versus 2 play, despite thinking you have the Taric. Like, so many teams, when we got back to standard lanes, actually started doing this, and we were like, well, please don't do that. Don't make the 2v2 against double TP.
But like, this is Febiven's nightmare. He's trying to play 2v2, then jungler shows up. It's not even ganking, just throwing spears from out of vision. And the enemy team has triple global at the same time. So like, we're just waiting for a 5-man engage from Fnatic against Febiven in that bottom lane.
Yep.
But this is why it's smart from H2K, as you said. Don't try and play around it, because you're going to be down 1 global. Attack the mid lane, attack the Gangplank instead, attack the globals, so they can never leave themselves because they're pushed all the way back.
And then you have to step back and look at what is that decision making. Not only does it work in Fnatic's favor in terms of the Nidalee ganking for Febiven, throwing out spears. Hey, party in Febiven's lane, wherever that may be, jump on him. Because we know how outspoken he is about 2v5ing every bottom lane forever. You know, this is a ADC with the history of being outspoken. And something that we've not mentioned today is just, what are the mindsets of the teams? How do they bounce back from the delays? How do they deal with the new coach for Rekkles and Fnatic? And how does H2K play around Febiven in what is a very high-pressure situation? Ladies and gentlemen, we will be jumping back onto the Rift in a moment or two. The levels do appear to be resolved. And there we go, quarterfinal, back on the books.
Back on the books, back into the Rift. And for Kikis, that means he finds himself back at a CS disadvantage, because this lane has not been good for Fnatic. Remember, it's all orchestrated predominantly by H2K in the draft. They ban out the Aurelia, ban out the Nab, get the priority for the top lane pick for Echo first pick.
Yeah, and at this point, you know, Fnatic, they got to strike. Hashtag Wrecking Crew winning.
I think the analyst desk helped out with that vote.
Oh, definitely.
Just a little
Very
bit.
biased analyst desk. But now, again, as I said, Fnatic, you know, you got to strike now. You got to at least move up and force H2K away from tower and get that first tower down so you get some gold back. Because you obviously lost that first blood already. Febiven is roaming up. Kikis can use his ulti and still stay in his bottom lane. And they are forcing them away. H2K knows there are a lot of globals. Here comes Odoamne.
Oh, this could be trouble for Fnatic. Was the tapping?
Yeah.
There we go. Cancelled. On the hunt used, but
this is even
down.
worse now.
This is important for 2 teleports on the side of Fnatic.
And the reason that this is even worse is because they just do the same thing on the next wave. You just look to push up, and Vander and Febiven are going to have to pull back. Jankos cannot be the only thing to help them here. They need something else, but they just used their TP, which means you got a GP ultimate incoming in about 3 seconds.
Let's find out. Cannon Barrage is the name of the game. The Cocoon forces the trigger finger just a little earlier. Tower continues to drop, but so do the minions. Wave clear from H2K is pretty solid so far.
Yeah, but still, like, technically Jankos would love to be on the bottom side, diving that Gangplank and just trading towers instead of having to sit here defend something where he knows at some point more members will show up. That was a defensive ulti from Kikis, by the way. It wasn't an aggressive one. He just stopped Jankos and the rest of H2K from chasing.
And the reason for that dive in the bottom lane is you've got Elise and Echo, two very good champions at killing and just getting the right back out of there. Just do not lose anything into that gank. So now that Kikis doesn't have the ability to at least put damage down in response, that's where they'd love to be hitting. But Jankos was drawn up the top side, and again, he's heading top.
Yeah, he's coming top again, as you said, because he believes right now that just defending that tower for as long as possible is the way to go. Problem is, H2K will not get a tower in exchange. There's no other towers even close to dying, except for that top tower. So Fnatic will soon get it and get that goal.
Oh, look at the river. Febiven's coming up to join the party. Spirit's looking for some javelin tosses as the wave is being cleared out. The tower down to 10% hit points, and Febi decided to back away. H2K, they will not give this tower up easily.
No, but again, defending costs them so much because every time they're defending, when the wave hits the tower, Ryu leaves his mid lane to run through his own jungle towards the top side and be ready in case a dive happens. He's not able to just push out his own lane. He allows Febiven to push first. Now Fnatic is roaming.
Look at the CS differences. Kikis, yes, he's down 20, but it's plus 15 in the mid lane for Febiven, plus 20 for Rekkles on the ADC. Fnatic are dictating the control of the game.
There is one AD carry who hates to sit and last it on the tower. It is Tristana. Ruining it for herself every single time. You will always lose a few here and there.
Jankos wants to go back top. Hang on a second here.
There's no support from Spirit. Where is he? Rekkles is in trouble. Glacial Fissure will buy some time. Rekkles goes down. Second kill to H2K.
From all of the pressure from Spirit being there and two teleports, Fnatic had nothing there to assist. Very curious decision that Febiven couldn't TP up, or even Kikis in that scenario. And now here comes the Tristana tower push.
I was just looking at the minimap and I saw Febiven had to use his claw to just get over the wall to escape some poke from Ryu. Meaning if he TP'd in, he wouldn't have the claw ready and probably didn't want to commit then. He didn't feel like he was in the right position. They are coming top again. Now, a lot of members from Fnatic roaming around, but this early game strategy is not really working.
Oh, Kikis is going to get soloed here. Phase dive one more time is all Odo needs. There we go. Flashes away. Odo chrono breaks to safety, making it look easy.
Kikis could have flashed earlier, avoided some of the damage that came out, but he was trying to hold on. Kikis, we know he always wants the 1v1, but look, let's take a look at this from Febiven. This is the jump in into the stun, locks down Rekkles, and YellowStar didn't have the shield quite in place on Rekkles at the beginning. It's an easy kill to pick up. Couldn't kite it backwards. Taric in vulnerability just for good measure.
Yeah, and H2K really cover themselves really well here. Ryu was already moving from mid towards the top lane when the engage happened. So even if Febi had TP'd, again guys, it's a 4.5 second teleport. Ryu would have been there in time to join as well. And because, as you said, the Taric ulti was in place, no one from H2K were low, so he couldn't really kill anyone.
And while we were in the replay, turret first blood was secured by H2K.
Fnatic worked so hard for it.
But they didn't pull the trigger with the teleports at the right times. That defensive cannon barrage, the minion wave not being set up proactively.
And the worst part is, what Fnatic could have done was just put down that GP ulti on the tower to force H2K to just step away from it and just get more damage on the tower itself. But they were saving it for too long and had to use it to disengage.
Spirit was trying to come in from the side at the same time, looking for kills, trying to force them back away from the tower, but H2K kind of just held their nerve. And now they've already got one tower. They want to look for the second. They already got some good damage down onto it before. So H2K have taken what Fnatic were trying to answer with and have given it right back to them in two towers form. And this is a great start for H2K.
Plus 3,000 gold, plus 3 kills, plus 2 towers. And just look at the items already starting to be completed. Eye-Edge versus some thrift shopping from Rekkles. He's not had a chance to back. And H2K have got a very comfortable setup to take charge of the mid-game. Febiven and Spirit trying to hunt a spider, but Jankos easily escapes the web. And Fnatic, they're just now playing defensive and catch-up.
And one of the very big stories coming into this playoffs was how would H2K perform? First of all, AD carry obviously out with an injury, so Febiven steps in. Two Polish players in Jankos and Vander, who's not been performing well in the past when we have playoffs. Well, in this game, Jankos especially, he's been doing his job. He's been everywhere he needed to be. He's picked up first blood. He's got even a second kill. Like, he is by no means underperforming like we saw last split when H2K played against Origin.
But look at what has started to happen. Spirit has dropped back. He's started to farm up heavily. And look at the freedom that gives Odoamne. A couple of wards in the jungle allows him to push all the way up in a long lane. That ward has only been there maybe 15 seconds. So Spirit had opportunities to look to punish, but can't take them now. The vision is already there. Odoamne is now safe. Despite not even having flash, he can get away.
Yeah, and let's be real here. At this point, in Nidalee and a Gangplank setting up a gank, it's not very successful. No one can really add a whole lot to help each other, so it's easy for Odoamne with the crazy mobility of Echo to just kind of dance around it. And we talked so much about Fnatic's strategy. Well, we saw how H2K were able to defend against, because Fnatic were just not aggressive enough either when they tried to push down that tower, and that's why they've now been punished.
Here's a quintessential Fnatic play that has just happened, though. They've put Rekkles back in there and are going to keep hold of middle lane with their AD carry and push back out. Dragon is being taken down by H2K.
18.5 minutes. I'm going to double check what the latest first Dragon is all summer. That feels like it'll be one in the contention at least. It will go the way of H2K. Fnatic get their first tower because of the fact H2K looked at that Dragon. Next one, Mountain. I think it'll be a bit more important to take.
Sure, but I'm actually really happy we got to see a very late Dragon, because one of the big talking points now with more standard lanes was going to be like, oh, wait, let's see Jankos. He's okay, he's fine. But one of the big talking points was like, oh, Dragons, you know, in standard lanes get taken down a little bit quicker now, because then people will, you know, win that 2v2 on the bottom side, then take tower, take Dragon, and then snowball out of control. But for teams, it's way more important to just get more towers, because when you get that bonus gold already, that gives you a little bit of an item advantage. Well, you can now snowball that even further, and you might hit the point where you fully complete an item ahead of everyone else with that extra early gold. So it's way more valuable to just keep hitting down and ramming down these turrets, especially with picks like Tristana.
Yeah, it works in H2K's favor. The next step, though, is pushing that further. H2K, throughout Summer Split, have had questionable decisions as a team when it comes to pressing their advantages and closing games out. So now we get to see what the practice time, what the time from week 9 now to quarterfinals, and obviously the inclusion of Febiven and the meta change has done to impact both H2K's Baron calls, mid to late game vision calls, and how they push closer to Fnatic's Nexus.
To that point, I quite enjoyed watching some of the H2K games with Febiven at the end of the split in week 9, because we spoke to Vander and he was talking about how he has a more vocal role in the team because Febiven speaks less than Freeze does. And it certainly showed us that H2K were a little bit more active on the map. So I want to see if that has remained true now with 2 weeks of practice. Is Vander still talking about where to go? Is it the same H2K? So far into the first 20 minutes of this play, I would say yes, with their proactive move against Fnatic's attempt to push down top. So I think H2K are playing in that same kind of stuff.
Yeah, now we have Fnatic still in a situation with globals, you know, more globals than H2K. H2K is putting up this 1-3-1 setup where the objective for them is that mid lane tower set, you know, Freeze in a position, or Febiven, sorry, in a position to start hitting that mid tower and take it down. That opens up for Fnatic to then try and TP in and engage. They're going for Ryu now. Well,
Glacial Fisher knocks Ryu up in the air. Sanguine Pool will buy some time. Flashes away. YellowStar's waiting, and Rekkles picks up the first kill for Fnatic.
So, kind of annoying when you're kind of talking about the setup for both teams, and then you realize the enemy mid laner, in this case Ryu, has just decided to push all the way up to the enemy tier 2 tower. Instead of respecting the fact, it's all about setting up Febiven. It's not about setting up Ryu here. He's not going to take a tower. No, you push it in, you roam to mid lane, and you allow Febiven to hit this tower. Big mistake from Ryu and costing a kill.
He's just trying to say anything that Odoamne can do, I can do better at that point, trying to push that far.
Push!
Oh, whoa! Face dive comes out, Chrono Shift!
Oh, he did it too early!
Odo didn't get the damage down. He needed to Chrono break out.
Cancel his own dash.
Did not see the build-up for that one. Feel like he's just running Kikis down. Deficio's on research duty on the other screen as Febiven and the rest of H2K, they're trying to siege this middle lane. Oh, damage down. I'm sure we'll get a replay, gentlemen, but what happened?
Oh, basically, he eased forward, and then instead of clicking on Kikis, he clicks on the tower. Yep. So he dashes to the tower, smacks it once, ultis back, doesn't get the kill.
That's painful.
Just a simple misclick from Odoamne, but H2K is still able to push this tower. Fnatic had to invest a lot to take down Ryu. Febiven has slowly but surely been chipping it down, and it's all about pressure right now. It's all about setting Tristana up for success. Let her hit these towers. Febiven needs to try and engage to stop this, but he's not been engaging anything other than that one kill top.
He's trying to look for the flank, but look at the wards all around mid lane. Very good vision control so far. Fnatic have got to try and clear it out. Here's this attempt that Odoamne and Kikis had in the bottom lane. You'll see what Deficio was talking about with what was potentially just an A-click forward. And and tower was...
Painful to watch.
That's so painful.
A lot of people at home just went, oh, I do that too. You know, I guess. Like being a pro player, sometimes you hit the tower.
One thing in that matchup now that will become a little more difficult for Odoamne is when it's wave against wave, Kikis can clear it out very effectively now with the Trinity Force completed, going to be able to clear things back, make it more dangerous for Odoamne to overstep under tower like that. We saw Kikis still nearly die, but it's still a little bit more precarious for the Echo.
Yeah, it's just so hard, you know, to step forward and even barrel the waves. If no Echo can just dash forward and jump you and he sticks to you so well, that's always a problem. When the enemy champion you face, especially in side lanes, these very long lanes, can kill you 1v1, you're forced to sit so far back on the map because you need your tower to defend you. So you can see Kikis on your minimap, he's stuck under that tier 2 tower almost all the time to avoid Odoamne killing him.
Talking about Odoamne killing Kikis, the fact that Ryu gave up a kill has allowed Fnatic to claw back this gold lead. It was nearly 3,000, 5 minutes ago, which is significantly more impactful than it is currently. And Fnatic, they've defended that mid-outer tower. Yes, it'll eventually go down, but it's bought a lot of time. Looking at some of the itemization as well. Triforce completed, Kikis about to get second. Proto Belt and Abyssal for Febiven. When he decides to go in, he can easily pick off a target, potentially even on a back line with the claw and that belt.
And once again, we're seeing the Hurricane Tristana come out. Has become pretty much standard for most Tristanas when you look at that wave clear that comes through. As just basically he's able to two-shot every single wave with the passive on the E that comes up. So Forgiven, we'll see how he can get extra damage later on into the game. As we know Tristana can become that late-game monster when given the chance.
Yeah, everything just kind of slowed down for H2K. Missed the kill in the bottom lane. Takes a bit of poke in mid, and then obviously Ryu dying top because what Ryu wants to do again is push in his wave, and then once it's past the river, he wants to start moving towards that mid lane because he knows there's a threat of Febiven TPing in. So if Ryu isn't nearby, then H2K can't push. They need him to always roam from his lane. You can see on your minimap now, he's roaming down to join the team. That means now Forgiven can push forward because you can actually take a fight around a dragon, around a tower, around a jungle camp. Before Ryu moves, well then Febiven can join himself without sending Ryu with him, and then it's a big advantage for Fnatic.
Well, Fnatic look like they want to contest this. Barrel's going out. 1,000 hit points on Dragon. Fnatic pushing forward. It's secured by Jankos. Spirit's in trouble, gets caught by the Cocoon. That's the 4th kill to H2K. Defensive flashes away, and Febiven didn't even teleport.
No teleport from Febiven and no setup from Fnatic either. He started recalling, then pushed forward in the wave, and Fnatic weren't prepared to take a full-on fight there. Didn't really use too much of their tools to do so, and now they've got a couple of ultimates down. Oh, flash forward.
Good damage onto Jankos, but the rest of Fnatic are peeling away. YellowStar's been caught out, locked down. Chrono Break was not going to find anybody, and Odo gets hit by the boomerang, rather. But Febiven finally teleports into the fight, but it's already over. Hemo playing, and Ryu on the front line is sending all of Fnatic packing. And Fnatic, they lose their tower and they lose their fight.
And ultimately ended up having to bring Forgiven to the fight in any way. Like, they could have potentially fought over the dragon and looked to go for that one setup fight, but Fnatic take 2 smaller fights on completely without some of their ultimates, just not able to fight effectively.
Oh, and I hate to say this, but judging from game 1, well, Fnatic looks like a team with almost no communication right now. 4 members moving down to try and stop a dragon when Febiven doesn't have a ward he can TP to. On that ward behind YellowStar now, but that's not a great TP location. So he ends up not even doing anything when Fnatic checks the dragon, and they were setting up for a fight, but then they weren't setting up for the fight because they didn't have any wards in place for Febiven to properly use. So you would have gotten just a Lissandra taking the front door where you wanted to come from the side. Just a big problem and an issue for Fnatic that they haven't been able to coordinate any global plays for 26 minutes with the Gangplank ulti, Gangplank teleport, and Lissandra teleport.
And that's more telling. That's the biggest story.
That's crazy.
Especially when you looked at what they had 6, 7 waves thrown at Forgiven and Vander in the top lane tower, and not one of them was an appropriate situation for Fnatic to pull the trigger. So they're still in a deficit. They're still playing from behind. But H2K, they're not insurmountably ahead yet, but it's getting to that point. It's getting to that point where Tristana, Vlad, Echo, where there won't be answers for Fnatic.
There has been no help and almost not a lot of ways to help Kikis in the last 27 minutes of this game. Nobody really has shown him too much attention in that bottom lane to try and bail him out. Luckily, he's playing a waiting game and hasn't given up too much over to Odoamne in that setup. But it's been meaning Fnatic are trying to play this global game, but with only presence around 2 lanes. And even then, top lane has been shoved into them time and time again. So they've been very, very cautious not to lose anything in those side lanes while everything else is happening mid.
And it's good to see Rio learn from his mistake. You know, he did it once. He overstepped on top side. He died. Immediately after, he returned to top, and then he roamed down. And you saw Fnatic then realize, oh, well, we can't get a 4v5. It's going to be an open team fight, and that's why they hesitated and didn't do anything. Actually, just end up giving up another kill. Because H2K knew now we have 5, we can take Dragon, we can take mid tower. Yeah. So it's very important that Rio respects the fact he doesn't have that teleport and always moves to join his team. So Febiven is in a position to hammer down turrets.
And of course, we're late enough in the game now that Baron Vision starts to be the name of the game. H2K had pushed into Fnatic's jungle, placed a couple wards, which have already actually been cleared out, a few of them anyway. But you can see H2K shifting their vision priority from the bottom half of the map to now the top half, and play that game. Force Fnatic to come to you. If you've got better vision, you can make a more informed decision.
And we talked about having this early gold lead by getting down some of these turrets, how important it is. You can see most of H2K members have like a fully item completed, a third item completed, where Fnatic is building towards that third item, most of them. Odoamne, he just keeps going for Kikis over and over.
There's no tower for Kikis to fall back to. He flashes out, but that was just going to be an easy kill. Spirit might look to get a reply, but the damage is good from Odo. He's running for his life, and there's simply no support. On the hunt down for Rekkles as well. Good tag from that Winter's Bite. Phase dive backwards, exhaust as well. Throw everything in the kitchen sink, and Odo still walks away.
And they're losing top side tower. The one time Fnatic actually decide to commit everything, it's all kind of in dribs and drabs, one at a time, try and go in there. Kikis is already dead, and they lose the tower on the other side of the map. H2K have been very good for punishing Fnatic when it comes to looking at the objective game. 2 dragons already, 3 towers ahead of them, because every time Fnatic is trying to make a play against an individual on H2K, H2K are just taking the map. And that is what has got them so much further ahead in this game. And Fnatic is struggling really hard to try and get back into this, but without Febiven getting a flank, now that he's got Zhonya's Hourglass to stay alive, it's going to be a tough ask for them.
And seeing as Fnatic haven't been able to use teleports when it was honestly much easier to set up, do we suddenly expect them to pull off a fantastic TP play from Febiven? Because that's the only way now to win the game, really, is you actually get this Lissandra flanking, TPing into the backline and one-shot someone like Febiven. He doesn't have QSS yet. There's no Mikhails. We can obviously lock it is completed. He's building towards MR now. So your window for Fnatic, we're talking about 2 minutes. And once you have a defensive item on Febiven, well then he won't get one-shot or locked down by Lissandra. And then it's going to be very hard to kill.
And that's the other thing. Then it becomes the game of Febiven, obviously, with the self-ult, trying to just get the AoE damage down as much as he can, and then that's Lissandra done. Is if you cannot lock people down for the Sivir, the Gangplank to clean up, suddenly that flank isn't quite as threatening anymore.
And that Lissandra engage where you ulti yourself with an Hourglass, you buy time. It's meant then for your AD carry to kill the enemy front line, and when that front line dies, you collapse on them. But Fnatic doesn't have a front line. The front line is just Febiven. Like YellowStar, if he dives in, he's too squishy as a support at this point, even as a tanky support. H2K has a tank at least in Echo and an ulti from Taric. That means you don't take any damage. So H2K will win that war as well in terms of keeping your front line alive for longer and then take out the enemy front line with your AD carry.
And I think that perhaps is the most curious thing about this game, is the fact that while talking about all of this team fighting, we've kind of overlooked Vander's role because he hasn't been needed.
Hold that thought for a moment, because Kikis needs all the help he can get. He's dive backwards. Kikis didn't even try this time around. Odo resets the aggro and just picks up
Tower's gone again.
A trivial kill. Kikis is just being kicked while he's down. You know, you want to go back to the Vander point. Vander's and the rest of H2K, they've come into this game, they look better prepared. They have a pick and ban phase that was adapted from Sunday and doing very, very well. And you can see Odo, most damage dealt because he's just been picking a Kikis. So much this series. YellowStar's in trouble. Gonna need to use that Glacial Fissure. Flashes over the wall. Repel follows through from Jankos. Spirit may look to pounce down. Fissure didn't even come out. Now Spirit's in trouble. He's forced to flash away. Ryu chases after. There's the cocoon from Jankos. Spirit will be the second kill in just a moment time. It's given to Febiven. And H2K, they're looking for the inhib.
Yeah, everything falling apart. Febiven trying to go aggressive against Odoamne, but barely dealing any damage at this point.
He really is. There's a chrono break as well, so Odo can buy some additional time. still in a 2-on-1, putting enough damage down that Febiven's in trouble. The shutdown comes out, but that is a measly, measly kill in comparison to the base completely open.
And before all of that, Odo had even opened up bottom lane by getting that inhib turret as well, so Fnatic cannot really assign enough resources to hold H2K across multiple lanes, and Fnatic are the team playing the global composition that should be better at, fixing multiple lanes, but their reluctance to do so earlier has made it very difficult for them to hold on this late. And you have to now look at this pick and ban phase and maybe the product of the uncompleted pick and ban phase, the priority that Echo had in this game without a real answer from Fnatic is very, very telling for how the rest of the draft are going to have to go.
You just see the replay. Obviously, YellowStar going down first, and at this point, there's really nothing you can do in these fights as Fnatic. If you don't get the perfect engage with your Lissandra, you're not going to win the fight. It's just going to be H2K picking up more kills. And really just a big issue, like the composition, I feel like was super risky from Fnatic. But at the same time, if you then execute the globals, sure, they can get first tower, they can try and snowball it through that 2v2 lane. Problem is, they didn't execute anything. So they actually just allowed H2K to farm up, defend that tower 2v2, and get tons of items on Tristana, on Vladimir, and now you pay the price.
They're definitely paying the price, and for Fnatic, they were able to grab themselves an Ocean Drake while we were in that replay. Let's say it's on H2K side, it's actually for Fnatic, but small, souls, they have to somehow change up the playstyle. Spirit gets caught up by Cocoon and Dazzle, very easily run down by the rest of H2K, and you look to game 2, H2K will be able to pick the side, Fnatic will be able to pick this side choice 4 minutes after the Nexus goes down, and they have to find out how to get on the same page with their team composition and their decision-making in-game, because it was sorely lacking.
Well, there goes the jungler of Spirit. Baron is now H2K's easily, and Odoamne drops back, soaks in 3 members of Fnatic, says, okay, well, we got the Baron, I'll do the same play again now with the Baron buff, I'm getting bot in him. It means the rest of the team are going to swing to mid lane with Baroned up minions. Jankos doesn't even care that there's 2 people here because he is strong enough to hold this.
Here comes Ryu, ghosting in. Rekkles has got some damage to follow up. The Chemo Plague will heal up Ryu in a moment or two, but again, no threat. Fnatic don't give up any kills, but the problem is they're giving up the game.
Definitely so. They can't really defend every single lane. They got super minions coming on top side as well, behind in gold, behind in items, and these turrets against Tristana, well, they don't survive long.
No, they do not. Inhibitors going down to Odo. Fnatic, they can't even decide which lane they want to try to stop. Both inhibs stay alive for a few seconds longer as Febiven was chunked down by, I think that was a barrel. Odo's not deterred though in the bottom lane. He's going to take inhibitor number 2. Just 1 or 2 more autos.
Fnatic can't even commit to anything right now because look at the mobility and the disengage from H2K. It's either you try and go on H2K in the main pack and they have a Taric ultimate that can keep everybody alive and suddenly then Odoamne comes in, or you try and go on an Echo who has his ultimate and flash and jump and everything around. Fnatic can't actually engage on H2K anymore.
Just trying to see what they can do. Obviously, now it's very uncoordinated because at this point, you start thinking about next game already. You're like, all right, guys, there's more games to be played. This also puts a lot of pressure on Nico the Pico, like the new coach, obviously, for Fnatic, having to adapt in between games and analyze mistakes on the fly, being able to talk to these players, because it's very difficult when you have such a rough first game for everyone to kind of calm down and refocus. Start thinking about the game you just played, all the mistakes that happened, all the communication issues. That's stuff Fnatic needs to fix in like 10 minutes. Between this game and next game. Because H2K have just been looking solid, slow and steady. They didn't try anything crazy at all. They just defended and played well. It might be a TP flank. This is it for Fnatic.
Cosmic Radiance is down, blocking some of the damage. Odo's already used Chrono
Here's
Break.
Febi.
Here comes Febi. Got the root down, but there's still supers in the base. Fnatic are down 8,000 gold, and Febiven is untouched. He's looking to clean up the fight. Fnatic are in retreat. Febiven flashes forward. Nobody's died just yet, but the Proto Belt sends Yellow, Rekkles, Kikis, one after the other, back to the fountain. Febiven's not done. Sends them down. The Nexus turrets are being blown away, and H2K pick up a commanding Game 1 win in this quarterfinal.
If you wanted to see a wrecking crew, it just swept all the way through Fnatic's base in Game 1. They took every tower, every inhibitor, and H2K perhaps look like they've returned form to the spring H2K we were talking about. Looked so good.
Very, very strong start to the series for H2K. They still have to pick up 2 more wins, and I think what's important to note here, the draft kind of allowed H2K to have this mid to late game setup, right?
Of course, I mean, that's what we talked about in the pick and man phase in the game, how Fnatic had to use that mid game with the globals. They were sieging that turret. I actually think that was a valid strategy. You know, 2v2 sieging with Spirit there, adding in the third guy for Fnatic and then the globals. But if you never use even the globals to like force people off the tower, not even kill them, but force them off the tower, you're not going to get them that first tower. Suddenly H2K turns it around, picks up a kill, takes tower themselves.
The one time Fnatic actually make the play with the flank, they're 8,000 gold behind. And like, you're against a Vlad that just ulted 5 people and suddenly gets all of this. Yeah, there's no need to worry about that. You're not far behind at all at that point, but they just hemorrhage objective after objective, and H2K just looked very comfortable doing it. Fnatic just didn't seem to have that reply from the TPs, despite building a whole comp around it.
Yeah, we had a whole lot of questions about how the teams are going to be prepared and whether or not Jankos or Spirit, who was going to show up, which style was better for game 1. Jankos very clearly. I believe the analyst desk is ready. Fnatic, they have suffered their first blow in this best of 5, so let's head over to hear them take it away.